The new 2022 Jetta does not push any boundaries or innovate in a segment-leading way. Instead, it's simply a pleasant car that makes a whole lot of sense. If you enjoy detailed, fun car content on all sorts of vehicles, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Thank you. New for 2022, the Jetta gets a little bit more power along with some exterior and interior styling tweaks, more technology including safety features, and a sensible revision on the trims offered, including an all-new one. You're gonna have 4 trims, starting with the S, then moving up to the Sport, then the SE, which is sitting right here next to me, and then the SEL. Just like when your landlord ups your rent because they renovated your landscaping with fresh wood chips, on the outside all Volkswagen really did was slightly change the upper and lower grille design and added their new more skinny logo. And if you're looking to make a move on the new Jetta, Royal on the Eastside, the friendly dealership that let me test this one, does not have a dealer markup on any of their new cars. They're located in Bloomington, Indiana and have experienced staff on hand. If you're looking for something new, used, or just plain cool, check them out. The new Sport trim replaces the old R-Line spec and largely comes with the same features as the base, which isn't a bad thing. You have standard LED headlights, however, you can get adaptive LED headlights which turn around corners for you if you go with the range-topping SEL. Well, on the outside, it's more or less a blackout treatment. You get black mirror caps, darkened window trim, different wheels, but I guess it's not all show, no go. Technically, the Sport trim does get one mechanical upgrade. Well, I guess I wouldn't call it mechanical, but it is VW's XDS cross differential system, which, to get technical, is not their VAQ limited slip differential. This is more so just using the brakes to kind of mimic a locking differential to help you a little bit with powering out of corners. Some of you might be let down that it's not a proper LSD, but this has 158 horsepower. Which that brings me to the next point. That is actually 11 more horsepower than last year, but it makes the same 184 pound-feet of torque. This power is going to come from one engine, and that is a 1.5 liter turbocharged, direct injected inline 4. That's a slight increase over the previous model year's displacement as well. You know, I can't really say it feels like it has a lot more power, but response, and especially in the lower part of the RPMs, even though the last one was pretty good, I think there's a little bit less lag, and that's because this engine utilizes some trickery in the form of a modified Miller cycle and variable geometry turbo. The former closes the intake valves early at low RPMs to increase efficiency, and the latter increases turbine speed at low RPMs to better response. In other words, while the transmission can be hesitant, turbo lag is not a problem. It honestly feels closer to a naturally aspirated engine than I think the previous model did, which is good for things like response. This is also going to be paired up with an 8-speed automatic, or as standard with the S and Sport trim, a 6-speed manual. So thank you, VW. We unfortunately just have the 8-speed automatic. A vast majority of cars out there right now are SE and SELs, and that's the only transmission that you're going to get with that. I've driven a Jetta with the 6-speed manual, and it's a fun little transmission. I mean, it's still got a kind of rubbery shifter, and it doesn't have the most precise short throws, but it remains engaging. And it's a smooth, easy car to drive. Plus, it's really not any less efficient overall than the auto. In my last Jetta test, it proved to be quicker too. But let's see what this 2022 model with its revised engine can do from 0 to 60. AC is off, transmission is in sport mode, and I shut off traction control through the touchscreen. This does have auto stop start. Kind of still felt like it was cutting power there. Really good low end response though. And it's very linear. So we got a blazing 0 to 60 of 7.6 seconds from this little Jetta. It did feel good, and it honestly felt like it limited power there a little bit. So maybe you could even get it better than that. There are no hubcaps for the Jetta. base cars get 16-inch alloys, with every other car getting some sort of variation of 17s. My SE here has the graphite black wheel package. The base and sport Jetta are pretty similar outside of the aforementioned tweaks, which means they both have the available IQ Drive package, which is largely a safety system thing, but it also does give you things like rain sensing windshield wipers. If you step up to the SE, you'll get that package standard, but you'll also get advanced keyless entry. But it's actually a button-based system, so there's no sensor on the door handle, but at least the button has a nice little click to it, and the door also, in typical VW fashion, feels solid. Walking around the back, you'll have standard LED taillights, and really, I have to commend VW for providing a pretty nice looking car in all packages. It doesn't ever look too bare bones. That's a big pro to this thing, is pricing. You can get a sport model, which is a nice looking car, for about 23 grand with destination. Of course, talking about style much here would be more pointless than telling a cat to stop repeatedly smacking the soul out of the litter box at 4 a.m. Looks are all subjective, so let me know what you think. If you want more strictly aesthetic illumination, the Sport and SEL get accent lights. But let's talk more about the transmission here. While the shifts themselves are usually smooth, sometimes it will bog down the engine, but the good thing is that this has good low down torque, so it can handle it. It can just make for some unrefined noises even at lower RPMs. Additionally, at low speeds, the transmission will hesitate at times, causing me to add throttle, resulting in mildly erratic acceleration at times. I feel like I can get used to it, but if you're willing to drive a stick and you're up to the task of finding one, I'd advise that. Accelerating up to highway speeds, no issue for this thing. We're cruising at 65 miles per hour right now, top gear, about 1900 RPMs. So you're not really hearing too much engine noise in here, but there is noticeable tire noise, a little bit more than I was kind of expecting. And really, when it comes to the whole interior experience, it does have some very distinct pros, but still it won't fool you into thinking that it's more expensive than it really is. Right away, there's two things that I think really separate the Jetta from its competition. One, it feels big and it's practical, but it's also very simple, making it feel like a tool designed to help you get through life versus something made to impress your occupants. I just wish VW could have found a better balance between both. One thing that will catch your eye is the SEL's 10.3-inch Digital Cockpit Pro, but if you don't want to spend 29 grand, VW has you covered with an 8-inch version in all other trims, new for 2022. Although it's not a super comprehensive version, but it's still pretty configurable and has nice graphics. They also have enough attention to detail to where they kind of fill up this blank space here on the sides of the screen with little blue lights there. Now you do have a standard 6.5-inch infotainment screen here, which comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And despite it not really having the best resolution, it does have a decent response time, and I don't have any issues interacting with it on the day-to-day basis. It's just starting to look pretty dated now. If you step all the way up to the SEL, you're going to get an 8-inch touchscreen that does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it really brings this whole thing back into this decade. Also, they did give it a new shift knob. I like that they put the indicator on it. It's kind of cool. Another thing that helps this with its broad appeal is the seats. There's enough bolstering to where if you're actually starting to slide in a corner, it catches you, but it's wide enough here for someone that's a bit larger. There's enough support. I think the seat bottoms are long enough. Even for me, I'm 6'3". So I think these seats will work well enough for most drivers, but their flat and firmish German feel aren't particularly inviting. Unfortunately, you do have to step up to at least the SE in order to get power seats that come with adjustable lumbar. The others just have a manual 6-way driver's seat. The only real option package for the Sport and S is that IQ Drive, which also gets you a leather-wrapped steering wheel and shift knob. The only real option package for the SE is going to be a panoramic sunroof, which, I mean, I don't think it deserves that big of a label. I mean, it's, larger than average, I would say, but back to this steering wheel. You do have physical buttons on here. There's none of that VW capacitive stuff here yet. They're nice and clicky, but everything in here just feels cheap. Like your dials here, at least they're physical. I gotta give VW credit for at least keeping the analog stuff in here, because that way I can just quickly do what I have to and forget about the material choice in here. Seriously, the dashboard of the Mazda 3 is comprised of softer, higher quality materials than any part of the Jetta cabin. And that kind of does remind me also as to why some of the other cars in the class are more expensive. At least with the SE, you do have dual zone automatic climate control here and heated seats as well. If you go up to the SEL, you're going to have ventilated seats, a heated steering wheel, heated rear seats. The panoramic sunroof comes standard along with the bigger touchscreen, plus customizable ambient lighting, remote start, and wireless charging. It really is a big jump between the SE and SEL, so at least like that VW makes it worth it to spend the extra money. You also get the glorious, awesome 9-speaker Beats audio system, and that was sarcasm, but the 4-speaker setup in here is just like, it works if you don't care. Really, when any speaker system that lacks a tweeter or just a higher placement speaker in general is going to be a letdown. This is something that many small cars leave only for their most base trims. For 80-90% of compact buyers, this should be fine, but if you're an audiophile, I'd skip the Jetta altogether. But I can pretty much forgive VW for this with how good of storage is in here. I mean, it's not crazy, but the door pockets are really nice. I mean, I can fit my 40-ounce Hydro Flask in here. The cup holders are good for smaller items, although I do wish they had some like things that kind of grip the bottle a little bit better. A healthy center console, and they're also reasonably padded too. And I also do commend VW for not using an egregious amount of piano black plastics in areas that you're actually going to be touching. So at least that will look better over time. I just wish that they had like some variation of materials here that looked a little bit more expensive, like a lot of the competitors now. Cars like the Honda Civic, Mazda 3, and Hyundai Elantra look and feel like they're in a different segment. However, the space of the VW is a distinct advantage that at least gives the cabin an airy vibe, something backseat passengers will enjoy too. With my 6'3" self set in a comfortable yet not excessive position, I can sit by myself and clear the back seat here, which is really good for this class. While it doesn't feel as plush as what's up front, you do still have a little bit of soft touch where your elbow will rest here. If you get the sport trimming up, you'll have a nice little center armrest here with cup holders. There won't be any USB ports, there's no rear vents, but the SEL does get those rear heated seats. And I'm comfortable back here, I have enough support, seats are pretty flat. But the back seat is an Uber driver's delight due to the intense size and cheap, easy to clean materials. The trunk is more of a mafia dream come true. The trunk of the VW Jetta is more cavernous than what I feel like some SUVs are. Not only is it pretty long, it's also wide, and I mean, there's not a whole lot of insulation, it seems like back here, which might attribute to some of that tire noise, but it allows for wide items to not only fit, but also tall items. And this model here in specific does have the spare tire, and it provides a pretty good pass-through as well, although I should note it's not completely flat. Although I guess if I'm gonna knock anything, it's gonna be the hinges here come out, and that will definitely crush some cargo. They're large. Yeah, boy. On imperfect, windy roads, the VW Jetta definitely gets the job done. This does utilize a torsion beam rear suspension. It's noticeable, but not something I can see bothering the average Jetta buyer, just the enthusiasts. So it's not going to inspire confidence to the same degree that a Honda Civic would. Honestly, a car this small and this lightweight, this type of suspension does work. The overall firmness of the ride is, I mean, it's pretty middle ground. Hitting larger bumps, it doesn't disturb the cabin too much. It's neither soft nor harsh. How are you doing 20 miles per hour? What are you hauling? So we're gonna do an impromptu acceleration test. Give her some means, come on. There's a little delay there. She gets around. Anyway, this is a reasonably forgiving suspension. At no point do I feel like it's insecure, and it's really doing a pretty good job of shielding me from this road. But if you're looking for a more comfortable, poised experience, I would probably go with something like a Subaru Impreza. I'd take it up to a little bit higher speeds on this smoother road. We'll get a better feel. Yeah, the steering response here is decent. There's definitely more direct cars in the class. The steering is well weighted, but it's numb. I at least have to commend it for not feeling like a complete simulation, but there isn't too much life coming through it. And the car's steering ratio may be quick on paper, but the vague center feel and body roll make it feel slow to react compared to the more driver-focused Mazda 3. But compared to that car, this has way better visibility. Out the front, I have a pretty clear view of the road. Side windows up here are pretty low, and so it's a approachable car to drive. It's something that I think most people can just hop in and feel comfortable with. Seeing out the back is also not too tricky. Plus, you have blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alerts standard on all Jettas. And if you get the IQ Drive package, that's when you'll get the adaptive cruise, a lane assist that has lane centering, and the IQ Drive again is standard on the SE, which I have here. The IQ Drive will also give you a feature to where it'll actually pull the car over for you if you like just ignore it for too long and it thinks that you're passed out. And it also gets active blind spot monitoring, so it'll actually like take corrective action if you're starting to swerve into someone's lane. So that Jetta has your back when it comes to safety. But when it comes to reliability, this generation so far has been okay, but the biggest issues were transmission related in the first model year. Problems usually came in the form of a grinding or growling noise, along with engine oil consumption and even some engine stalling. But luckily, reports of all those have dropped significantly after 2019. Time will tell here, but I wouldn't recommend this if reliability is your top priority. Yet. Also, do not listen to the 10K oil change interval by VW. All of the brand's mechanics I've spoken to recommend something like 5,000. But on top of any mechanical issues, VW does have solid feeling doors, but sometimes other build quality bits just don't stack up. Like, even in my drive here with a basically brand new car, I heard a little rattle coming from the sunroof, and I put my hand up there and then it stops. So I can expect little things like that happening over time, but the owner satisfaction rates of this generation have been pretty good overall. There's one thing that I really appreciate about the Jetta and VW's approach to this car now. They did a great job at understanding who is buying this car and why. It doesn't stand out in a good or bad way in terms of handling or comfort, but the grunt and efficiency of the 1.5 liter will be appreciated. The immense interior space, agreeable seat comfort, and convenient tech are there to make day-to-day life easy. People, including myself, may talk down the Jetta for its cheapness, uninspiring steering or cornering capabilities, and the transmission can be a nuisance for sure, but VW wasn't trying to make a wannabe luxury car. I still wish they didn't cut certain corners, but for the price, the abundant features, clean looks, and practicality you get here make the Jetta a relevant choice in a class full of competent competitors. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like to assist me in my noble battle against the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and hit the bell for notifications for more content. Thanks for watching, and thank you to all of my loyal Patreon subscribers.